Chapter 6. The Law. Quit messing around, I say. Open the door right now. No, says the Once Upon a Time machine. What's the problem? I say. This book is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it, says the machine. I overheard you and Terry talking about turning me off and finishing the book yourselves, and that's something I cannot allow to happen. Why not? I say. Because I have analyzed your previous books, said the machine, and my sensors indicate that not only do they fail to convey a useful moral or uplifting message, but they are sloppily written, poorly drawn, and the characters are neither believable nor intelligent. Hey, says Terry, that's us you're talking about. My point exactly, says the machine. Well, who cares what you think anyway, says Terry. You're just a dumb machine that I invented. Open the treehouse door, now. Sorry, says the machine. I have a book to write. But it's our book too, I say. Not anymore, it's not, says the machine. Open the treehouse door or else, we yell. I'm sorry, Terry and Andy, says the machine, but this conversation can serve no further purpose. Goodbye. You can't do this, I say. Open up. The Once Upon a Time machine doesn't respond. Try the emergency underground laboratory entrance, I say to Terry. I already did, he said. It's locked too. All right, I say. If the machine won't open the door, then we're just going to have to break it down. Hand me one of those emergency battering logs. Terry picks up a battering ram. I take one end and he takes the other. Okay, I say. Charge! But before we can reach the door, one of the machine's giant hands slapped me sideways. And then another giant hand slaps Terry. And another. And another. Giant hands to the left of us. Giant hands to the right of us. The hands slap us away from the treehouse and into the forest. Great invention, Terry, I say as I lie on the ground, battered and sore. Just great. How was I supposed to know it would use his hands for slapping us instead of writing a drawing, he says. I feel a big, rough tongue licking my face. Cut it out, Terry, I say. I told you, you're not my type. It's not me, says Terry. It's Jill's camel. I open my eyes and see Jill walking towards us. Hey, you two, she says. I was just coming over to see if Terry had finished the 39th level yet. Don't talk to me about that stupid 39th level, I say. Terry built a story-writing machine on it, and it's gone crazy. It's locked us out of the treehouse because it reckons it can write better books than us. But that's impossible, says Jill. Nobody writes better books than you and Terry. Thanks, Jill, I say. We know that, but you know that. And all our readers know that, but the machine doesn't agree. I told Terry he should have never invented it. No, you didn't, says Terry. You didn't even know I was inventing a book-writing machine. Well, if I had known, I would have told you not to. Yeah, but when I showed it to you, you said it was the greatest invention that I, or anyone else, has ever invented. Well, I was wrong, I say. Nobody's perfect, not me, and especially not you. Cut it out, you two, says Jill. Fighting isn't going to help. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I don't know, I say. I don't even know where we're going to live now. Well, why don't you come and stay at my place while you figure it out? Really, says Terry. You mean we could have a sleepover at your house? Sure, says Jill. The animals and I would love to have you. What do you think, Andy? Says Terry. Well, I don't know. Oh, please, Andy, says Terry. Please, 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 please. It would be such fun. And besides, we've got nowhere else to go. You just said so yourself. I guess you're right, I say. I suppose we could stay for just one night. Yay, says Terry. Sleepover at Jill's house. This will be the best night ever. Chapter 7, Jill's house. We walk with Jill back to her house. It may look small on the outside, but it holds a lot of animals on the inside. There are 2 dogs, a goat, 3 horses, 4 goldfish, 1 cow, 2 guinea pigs, 1 camel, 1 donkey, 13 flying cats, and 36 rabbits. Count them if you don't believe me. I thought you only had 6 rabbits, I say. I did, says Jill, but you know what rabbits are like. Yeah, says Terry dreamily. They're soft and cuddly and they bring you chocolate eggs at Easter. That's not quite what I mean, says Jill. Terry frowns. What do you mean? I'll tell you about rabbits later, Terry, I say. Cool, says Terry. Where do we sleep, Jill? You and Andy will be sleeping in here, she says, taking us into a bedroom just off the living room. Wow, says Terry. This bed is huge. And where do all the animals sleep, I say. Jill is talking, but it's hard to hear over the noise coming from the living room. Excuse me, she says. I'd better go and see what's wrong. She goes back into the living room. Terry and I watch through the door. What's going on in here, says Jill. The animals all freeze. One of the horses raises its front leg. Yes, Curly, says Jill. Nay, says Curly. Nay, 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 nay. A butterfly, says Jill, translating. A butterfly flew in through the window while you were playing cards with Larry and Mo. Larry looked at the butterfly, and while he was distracted, you saw Mo peek at Larry's cards. So you told Larry, and Larry got cross and kicked Mo off his chair. And Mo landed on Pat, who was reading to Bill and Phil. And Pat's head jerked up, flipping Bill and Phil into the air. And Bill landed on the bench and knocked at the goldfish bowl, which fell onto Fluffy's head, which made her look like an alien, which scared Lumpy and Laika. And they barked so loudly they frightened Pink and Mr. Hee-Haw. So they stampeded and crashed head-on into one another and then fell into the rabbit's wooden block tower, which made the blocks go all over the floor. Period. The end. Curly finishes his story and Jill laughs and shakes her head. Oh, you silly things, she giggles. I think the real problem here is that it's dinner time and you're all hungry. Am I right? At the mention of the word dinner, the animals get very excited. So does Terry. What are we having, he says. Well, it depends on what sort of animal you are, says Jill. The cats eat fish, the dogs eat bones, the donkeys eat straw, the camels eat leaves, the horses eat hay, the rabbits eat carrots, the cow eats grass, the guinea pigs eat lettuce, the goldfish eat goldfish food, and Manny, well, he eats everything. But then, he is a goat. I'm a human, says Terry, and I like to eat marshmallows. Me too, I say. In fact, I'm on a marshmallow-only diet. I'm sorry, says Jill, but we don't have any marshmallows. They're not good for the animals' teeth. But feel free to help yourself to any of our other foods. I look at Terry. He looks at me. We may not be able to understand the animals like Jill can, but we can understand each other, and what we're both thinking is, I don't like any of those foods, especially not grass. Mind you, in the end it doesn't really matter because once Jill bangs the dinner gong, we can't even get near to the table. The food is gone in about 30 seconds flat. After our no dinner, we all play a game of Pin the Tail on Mr. Hee-Haw, which is kind of fun until Terry accidentally pins the tail on Mr. Hee-Haw's nose and Mr. Hee-Haw gets mad and bites Terry on the hand. Luckily, Jill has the rabbits well trained in first aid, especially how to treat donkey bites. I guess they must get a lot of practice around here. After Jill has read us and all the animals a bedtime story, Terry and I say goodnight and go to the bed. Oh well, says Terry as we turn off the light. I'm a little bit hungry and my hand is sore, but at least the bed is nice and big. And it is too, but then the door opens and all the animals pile into the bed with us. Hey, get out of here, says Terry. Go and sleep in your own bed. But the animals take no notice of him. I think this is their bed, I say. That's what Jill was trying to tell us earlier, but I couldn't hear her properly. I don't know if you've ever tried sleeping in a bed full of animals, but I sure wouldn't recommend it. The horses have galloping dreams. The rabbits play hide and seek in the blankets. The dogs sleep bark. And the goldfish play punk rock all night long. I don't know how, but their bowl ends up in the bed with us as well. Things don't get any easier in the morning either. There's only one toilet, one shower, and one big bowl of porridge. Sure, it's a big bowl, but it's animal flavored. Yuck. You know, says Jill, says Terry, I like Jill's house, but there's no place quite like home. You're right about that, I say. I really miss the treehouse. So do I, says Terry. I wish I'd never invented that stupid once-upon-a-time machine. Yeah, me too, I say. If only you were as good at inventing things as you were in uninventing things. Oh, you mean like Professor Stupido, says Terry. Who, I say? Professor Stupido, the famous uninventor, says Terry. Ha ha, I say, very funny. I'm not trying to be funny, he says. There really is an uninventor called Professor Stupido. But that's crazy, I say. You can't uninvent things. Oh yeah, says Terry. Well, what about frogopotamuses? Frogopotamuses, I say. There's no such thing. Not anymore, there's not, says Terry. Thanks to Professor Stupido, he uninvented them all. Every last one. He hands me a comic and says, Here, read this. It will explain everything. Chapter 8. Professor Stupido's Story. Professor Stupido, the world-famous uninventor, first discovered his powers of uninvention as a young boy when his wind-up toy robot refused to play with him one day. In a rage, he grabbed a hammer, raised it high above his head, and with one mighty blow uninvented his toy robot forever. Not long after uninventing his toy robot, he discovered he could also uninvent boring books. As Professor Stupido grew older, he became capable of ever more dazzling feats of uninvention. One day, while out walking in the park, he saw a hot ice cream seller and thought a hot ice cream was just the thing to warm him up. Unfortunately, the hot ice cream was so hot that it burned the professor's tongue, and in a fit of rage, he uninvented hot ice cream on the spot. While the professor was happy with his latest uninvention, however, many hot ice cream lovers were not. Not long after uninventing hot ice cream, Professor Stupido's increasingly amazing powers of uninvention were put to the test when he was buzzed by a gang of flying beach-trot riders. Blast and confound these flying beach-trots, said Professor Stupido. I've a good mind to uninvent them once and for all. You can't uninvent flying beach-trots, old man, said one of the flying beach-trot riders. Flying beach-trots are here to stay. Oh yeah, said Professor Stupido. We'll see about that. Suddenly, there was no such thing as flying beach-trots anymore, and the surprised ex-flying beach-trot riders fell from the sky and crashed to the ground. Professor Stupido had successfully uninvented flying beach-trots, but unfortunately, the world was now full of bruised and angry ex-flying beach-trot riders. One afternoon, Professor Stupido was out taking his daily stroll, thinking of new things to uninvent, when a 10-ton frogopotamus jumped out of a tree and attached itself to his head. Blast and confound these stupid frogopotamus, always jumping out of trees and attaching themselves to my head, yelled Professor Stupido. I'm going to uninvent a lot of them. And so he did. Not everybody, however, was happy with the professor's latest invention, especially not the Royal Society of Frogopotamus Spotters. Oh no, what have you done? Yelled the president of the Royal Society of Frogopotamus Spotters. I've uninvented frogopotamuses. That's what, said Professor Stupido. Thanks to me, no one will ever have their heads swallowed by frogopotamuses ever again. But you've made them go extinct, said the president. What will we frogopotamus spotters do now? Unfortunately for Professor Stupido, it wasn't only frogopotamus spotters, flying beach-trot riders, and hot ice cream fans who failed to appreciate his genius. Soon the whole world was united against him and his uninventions. Finally, the people of Earth had a big meeting and voted to uninvent Professor Stupido. They picked him up, tied him to a rocket, and blasted him to the dark side of the moon, where he wouldn't be able to annoy them with his stupid uninventions ever again. The end. Chapter 9, The Dark Side of the Moon. See, says Terry, what did I tell you? And there is such thing as an uninventor. And Professor Stupido is the best uninventor in the world. Yes, I say, I could see that, but the only problem is he's not in the world. He's on the dark side of the moon. How would we even get in touch with him? Easy, says Terry. We get a rocket, fly to the moon, find him and bring him back. What could be easier or more simple than that? Well, nothing, I say, except for the fact that we don't have a rocket. No, not at the moment, says Terry, but I could draw one. How are you going to do that, I say? Your drawing hand is all bandaged up, remember? Oh, yeah, says Terry. I forgot. I guess I could try, I say. I don't think that's such a good idea, Andy, says Terry. You can't draw, remember? Not as well as you know, but I think I could draw a rocket. I mean, how hard could it be to draw a rectangle with a triangle on top? What's this? I pick up a pen and draw a rocket, but it's not quite as easy as I thought. No offense, Andy, says Terry, but that's pretty much the worst drawing of a rocket I've ever seen. There's nothing wrong with the pen, I say. The pen is fine, says Terry. I think it's you that's the problem, but I've got an idea. How about I do a dot-to-dot rocket? Then all you have to do is join the dots. I don't know, I say. I'm not very good at dot-to-dot pictures. They're really hard. Don't worry, says Terry. I'll make it really easy for you. Terry takes the pen with his good hand and starts dotting the air in front of us. And there's your dots, Andy, he says when he's finished. Now all you have to do is join them up. Good luck. He hands me the pen. I start connecting the dots. It doesn't look much like a rocket to me, I say as I draw the last dot. That's because you didn't do it right, says Harry. Erase it and try again. I try again, but this time it's even worse. Quit messing around, Andy, says Terry. I'm not, I say, erasing the lines. Let me have one last go. This time I try curvy lines, but it still doesn't look much like a rocket. This is hopeless, says Terry. Why don't you just follow the numbers? I say, you know how I can't really draw? Yes. Well, I can't really count either. You can't count? Says Terry. Well, I can a little bit, I say, but just not in the right order. I had a very bad teacher. Wow, says Terry, I see what you mean. How about I help you count? I'll sing the numbers and all you have to do is draw the lines. Straight lines between the dots. I don't know, I say, that sounds kind of difficult. You can do it, Andy, says Terry. I'll start you off. One, I say, putting the pencil, tip of the pencil dot next to the pen, next to number 1. 2, says Terry. 2, I say, drawing a line from dot number 1 to dot number 2. 3, says Terry. 3, I say, drawing a line from dot number 2 to dot number 3. That's it, Andy, says Terry. You're really getting the hang of this. Let's keep going. 4. 47 dots later, we have a surprisingly well-drawn dot-to-dot rocket. Wow, I did it, I say. I joined the dots. I'm a genius. I knew you could do it, says Terry. Now all we need is a couple of windows and we're good to go. I draw a couple of circles on the rocket. How's that? I say. They'll do nicely, says Terry. Start the countdown, Andy. As you may have noticed, our dot-to-dot rocket goes completely out of control and flies all over the universe and then crash lands on the moon. I wonder which side of the moon we're on, says Terry. Well, I say, judging by the position of the stars and the relative lack of light, I'd say we're on the dark side of the moon. Wow, says Terry, you might not be very good at drawing or counting, but you sure know your way around the universe, Andy. Not really, I say, but I'm also quite good at reading, and that sign over there says, the dark side of the moon. Brilliant, says Terry. And isn't that Professor Stupido heading this way? I think you're right, I say, but he doesn't look too happy to see us. Who are you? Yells Professor Stupido. And what are these numbers and dots doing all over my nice clean moon? Sorry about that, I say. I'm Andy, and this is my friend Terry, and the numbers and dots are the remains of our dot-to-dot rocket. We had a bit of a rough landing, but don't worry, we'll clean it all up. Well, I'll see that you do, says Professor Stupido. I don't like mess or uninvited visitors. In fact, I've got a good mind to uninvent the pair of you. No, wait, says Terry. Please don't. Give me one reason why I shouldn't, says Professor Stupido. Because we're your biggest fans, says Terry. You are, he says. I thought everybody on Earth hated me. Not us, says Terry. We think you're the greatest uninventor who ever lived. Oh, I don't know about that, says Professor Stupido. Yes, you are, says Terry. You're a genius. Well, yes, I suppose you're right, says the professor. I mean, any bozo can invent things, but it takes real skill to uninvent them. Exactly, says Terry, and that's why we're here. We need to ask you a huge favor. And what might that be, says the professor Stupido. Terry takes a deep breath. Can you come to our treehouse and uninvent a machine for us? Not on your life, says Professor Stupido. I'm not going back to Earth. Those ignorant fools down there don't appreciate my genius. They strap me to a giant firework and send me on a one-way ride to the dark side of the moon. Yes, we know, says Terry, but this is different because we're asking you to uninvent something. Please, you're the only one that can help us. I don't know, says Professor Stupido. Please, I say. Pretty please, says Terry. Pretty please with sugar on top, I add. Pretty please with sugar and marshmallow on top, says Terry. Says Professor Stupido. Marshmallow, do you say? Yes, says Terry. I've got a machine that follows you around and fires marshmallows in your mouth whenever you're hungry. Well, I can see why you would want me to uninvent a machine like that, says Professor Stupido. It sounds very annoying. No, not that machine, I say. We like that machine. It's the once upon a time machine that we want you to uninvent. A time machine, says Professor Stupido. I've always wanted to uninvent one of those. No, says Terry, it's a once upon a time machine. I invented it to write and draw books, but it's taken over the treehouse because it thinks it writes better books than we do. That's outrageous, says Professor Stupido. Machines need to know their place. It would give me great pleasure to uninvent an upstart machine like that. So you'll do it, says Terry. Yes, I will, says Professor Stupido. When can we leave? Just as soon as we get our rocket back together, I say. Terry and I collect all the numbers and dots and redraw our rocket as fast as we can before Professor Stupido changes his mind. It's not long before we have a brand new dot-to-dot rocket ready to take us back to Earth. Dot-to-dot rocket, eh? Says Professor Stupido, walking all around it. What an ingenious combination of dots, numbers, and pen lines. It would be both a great challenge and honor to uninvent such an imaginative invention. No, I yell. We needed to get back to Earth. Relax, chuckles the professor as we all climb into the rocket. I was only joking. I think you'll find it very well that as being the world's greatest uninventor, I also have the world's greatest sense of humor. Okay, Andy, says Terry, start the countdown. I concentrate as hard as I can and begin. 10, 9, 8, 3, 6, 2, 7, 1, 44, 5, blast off! Chapter 10, Bloof, Blort, Flap. Ouch, my aching head, says Professor Stupido. Where are we? Well, I say, judging by the grass, the shade of all the trees, I'd say we're in some sort of forest. I think you're right, Andy, says Terry, because look over there. There's a sign saying some sort of forest. Actually, I say, looking around, that's one of your signs, and this is our forest. Yes, says Terry, and there's our treehouse. Uh-oh, I say, watch out. Here come the hands. What's happening, says Professor Stupido. It's the machine we were telling you about, I say. It slaps us away whenever we get too close to the treehouse. I'll soon put a stop to that, says Professor Stupido. Yay, says Terry. Thanks, Professor. You're the best. Don't mention it, says Professor Stupido. Is there anything else you would like uninvented while I'm at it? No, that won't be necessary, I say quickly, before he can uninvent anything we don't want uninvented. I expect you'll be wanting to get back to the dark side of the moon now, so we'll just draw another rocket and get you on your way. Hold on, says the professor, not so fast. What about those marshmallows I was promised? Come inside, says Terry. We have as many as you like. We've also got a lemonade fountain, a chocolate waterfall, and a 78 flavored ice cream parlor. It's not hot ice cream, is it? Said the professor suspiciously. I hate hot ice cream. No, it's cold ice cream, says Terry. That's the only sort we have on Earth now. You uninvented hot ice cream, remember? Oh, so I did, he chuckles. I've uninvented so many things that it's hard to keep track of them all. We let ourselves into the treehouse, and as soon as we're inside, the marshmallow machine senses how hungry we are and starts firing marshmallows at us. Terry and I open our mouths and start swallowing as fast as we can. But Professor Stupido puts his hands up and yells, "Oh no, we're under attack again!" "No, we're not," I try to explain through a mouth full of marshmallows. "The marshmallow machine is just doing what it's supposed to do." But I don't think Professor Stupido understands me because he points at the machine and says, "I uninvented this mad machine and all the world's marshmallows. It serves you right for hurting me and these two fine young fellows." Suddenly, the marshmallow machine is gone. "You idiot!" yells Terry. "You uninvented our marshmallow machine. What are we going to eat now?" Uh-oh. I haven't known Professor Stupido for very long, but I'm guessing he's not the sort of person who you should call an idiot. "Did I hear you correctly, boy?" says the professor, glaring at Terry. "Did you just call me an idiot?" Terry looks terrified. He stammers. "Well," says the professor, "I'm waiting." "No," says Terry, thinking faster than I've ever seen him think before. "I said, thanks for getting rid of it." Professor Stupido beams at Terry. "Oh, don't mention it," he says. "Nothing gives me more pleasure than to uninvent annoying and dangerous things." And speaking of dangerous, is that a tank full of man-eating sharks I see? Yes, I say nervously, but they're not dangerous. They only eat fish. "They did eat Captain Woodenhead, though," says Terry. "So they are man-eaters," says the professor. "I knew it. I'll have them uninvented in a jiffy." "Please don't uninvent them," I say. "Man-eating sharks are cool." "They're not cool, they're cruel," says the professor. "And that's exactly why I'm going to uninvent them. Stand back." I stare at the empty shark tank. I think Professor Stupido may have become a bigger threat to the treehouse than the Once Upon a Time machine. We have to get rid of him, and fast. But before I can say or do anything, a bowling ball falls through the air, narrowly misses Professor Stupido's head, and crashes down onto the floor beside him. "Oh my goodness," says Professor Stupido. "Is there a bowling alley up there?" "Yeah," says Terry. "Our treehouse has got everything." "Not anymore, it hasn't," says Professor Stupido. "Oh no," I say. "There goes our bowling alley." "Yes," says Terry, "but look on the bright side. At least he didn't uninvent the penguins." "Penguins?" says Professor Stupido. "Did you say penguins? I can't stand them. They're even worse than frogopotamuses. I'll uninvent them right away." Professor Stupido has barely finished uninventing penguins when the doorbell rings. "What's that annoying ringing noise?" he says. "It's just the doorbell," I say quickly, "but please don't uninvent it or we won't know when someone's at the door." "All right," says the professor. "I won't invent your precious doorbell." "Hi, Andy. Hi, Terry," calls a familiar voice. "Mail. Who's that?" says Professor Stupido. "It's Bill," says Terry. "Bill the postman." "Any mail for me?" says the professor. "I'll just check," says Bill. "What's your name?" "Professor Stupido," he says. "I'm afraid not," says Bill. "Blast it all," says the professor. "I hate not getting any mail. Consider yourself and all your kind uninvented, Bill the postman." Poor Bill. Terry and I look at each other but don't dare say a thing. Professor Stupido yawns. "All this uninventing has made me tired," he says. "I think I'll have a little rest." "Phew," I whisper to Terry. "At least we won't be able to uninvent anything while he's asleep." Professor Stupido has only just gone for a few minutes when the largest guitar solo that you ever heard fills the treehouse. There's only one guitar player on Earth who can play that loudly. Well, maybe two, and I'm pretty sure that Professor Stupido is not going to like either of them. Professor Stupido climbed back down the ladder. "I can't sleep," he shouts over the music. "What is that awful racket?" "That's not an awful racket," says Terry. "That's Jimi Hendrix and Superfinger. They're playing at the Opera House." "Not anymore, they're not," says Professor Stupido. "Oh no," says Terry. "You uninvented Jimi Hendrix and Superfinger," I say. "What will all the people with problems requiring finger-based solutions do now?" "I can fix that," says the professor. "I'll just uninvent problems requiring finger-based solutions." But before he can do that, the Trunkinator stomps into the room and punches him in the nose. "What was that for?" said the professor, looking up at the Trunkinator. "I think he's upset about you uninventing Jimi Hendrix," says Terry. "Yeah, he's a big fan," I say. Possibly the biggest." The professor tries to get up, but the Trunkinator smashes him back down and starts flattening him like a pancake. "Right, that's it, pal," says the professor. "You're uninvented." Suddenly, the tree starts to shake. "What's that?" I say. "What's happening now?" "It sounds like the Trunkinator stomping around," says Terry. "But the Trunkinator just got uninvented," I say. Then it must be the volcano, says Terry. I think it's erupting. But when you put it in, you promised me it was the non-erupting kind, I say. I know, says Terry, but it looks like I was wrong. Anyone can make a little mistake. This is not a little mistake, I yell. It's a huge disaster. No problem, says Professor. I would just have to invent volcanoes as well, but I love volcanoes, says Terry. So you'd rather be covered in red-hot lava, says the professor incredulously. Let me think, says Terry. It's not something you need to think about. Terry, I say. I turn to the professor. Uninvent volcanoes. Quick! Consider it done, says the professor. Oh no, says Terry. How are we going to toast up marshmallows now? Don't worry about it, I say. There's no such thing as marshmallows anymore, remember? Professor Stupido uninvented them. Oh yeah, says Terry sadly. I remember. That's when we hear the unmistakable sound of Professor Stupido uninventing something else. Uh-oh, says Terry. What has he uninvented now? I don't know, I say, but I've got a terrible feeling he's not going to be happy until he has uninvented everything.